Assalamu alaikum everyone. uh, I hope you all are fine. In last class we have discussed how China become the uh, manufacturing hub in the world, how China become manufacturing country for most of the product, which is electronic product, if it's toys, whatever, machineries, furniture, everything, accessories, any products you name it, you will find that they are made of China. How they have manipulated their resources like land, labor and capital that they are having. And also we have discussed how they have attracted more foreign direct investment from other countries, how they have attracted foreign companies. In last class we have discussed all these issues. In this class we will discuss about international trade theories. Actually we should have discussed this before, but I forgot it to record this lecture and put it in. I think it is around week 6 or week 10, but anyway we need to discuss this theory. You find that the business international trade between two countries are based on some facts and theories and framework. They are based on certain policies and procedures. If you see that every country has their own international policy, trade policy, how they need to trade with certain countries, what are their policies, what are their procedures, what are theories, which theories they want to apply, how it benefit their country. So it depends on every single country. They see their situation, they see their economic status, whatever they're planning, they will consider each and every single thing. Then they will make a policy against another country. How much percent, for example, Afghanistan, why we need to import more from Pakistan? There is a reason. What is our foreign international trade policy with Pakistan? What is our international trade policy with Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, in this country? What are our international trade policy with UAE? How much tariff we need to put on certain goods? Why we need to put tariff on Pakistan or India or Iran or these products? Which products we need to put tariffs? So these are all questions which will be based on analysis. These questions will be solved based on critical analysis. Then they will make a single policy regarding this. Yes, we need to have this imports, this much tax, how it will affect our economy, how it will affect our relationship between two states. So it will, this policy or procedures needs to consider all aspects of business, different reactions. For example, if you impose 50% tax on Pakistan import from Pakistan, they will do the same thing. So who will suffer? So that's how it should not be based on emotions. It should be based on the policies and procedures, needs to be based on facts and figures. And these analysis needs to be for the mutual benefits of both countries and both nations. So when they are making policies, they need to consider the benefits for the citizen of the country, benefits for the government, benefits for the opposite side, and benefits for them. You cannot say that I need 100%, I don't want to share the benefits with other countries. No, it should be around the policy should be made for mutual benefits for both parties. So let's discuss what is international trade theories, what are international trade theories, when these theories have start implementing, how it happens. So that's overall. International trade theories are simply different theories to explain international trade. Trade is the concept of exchanging goods. So we have discussed this in services between two people or entities. International trade is then the concept of this exchange between people or entities in two different countries. People or entities trade because they believe that they benefit from the exchange. They may need or want the goods or services. While at the surface this many sound very simple. This may sound very simple. There is a great deal of theory policy and business strategy that constitute international trade. So people think it's a very simple thing, but there's a behind the scene, there is a great strategies. They have their own strategies, that they write strategies. For example, let's consider trade policy or strategy of Trump administration. Now Biden, they are trying to recover everything with China. They are planning to have a good relationship with China, but Trump policy and strategy was different. He was very aggressive against China's certain product. He put tariffs. He imposed tariff on certain products from China. He imposed tariff on the Indian products. So that's why. So these policies are basically belongs to government. Which policy strategy they are following against a certain countries, trade policies, which theory. So which trade policy and strategy they are having, why they need to have certain strategy, strategic partnership. So you see that certain countries are signing trade strategic partnership, trade policy, something. You see that they are planning to facilitate trade between two countries. They are planning to facilitate movement of goods from one country to another capital. So that's another. In this section you will learn about the different trade theories that have evolved over the past century and which are most relevant today. Additionally, you will explore the factors that impact the international trade and how businesses and governments use these factors to their respective benefits to promote their interests. So that's what we will discuss in this chapter. What are different international trade theories? So it depends. It goes to many years before. Certain authors, certain writers say that it goes beyond 5,000 years before. Some say it goes through 6,000. So it depends. These are the written texts of authors. So we don't know. We just say God knows how long it has been going on, these theories. Certain ancient times, Romans time, how these people were trading between each other, what were their policies at that time. So it needs a lot of research and discussion. So we need to find what was their trade policy, what they were doing. So it depends on. So around 5,200 years ago, Europe in southern Mesopotamia. Sorry, this is a first word. I'm reading it. I think it was maybe ancient world. Was probably the first city in the world had ever seen housing more than 50,000 people within its 6 mile of wall. So that was a first city that had 50,000 people around. So it's the written Wall Street Journal, May 2010. Yes. So that's was probably this, housing more than 50,000 people within its 6 mile of wall. Europe, its agriculture made prosperous by sophisticated irrigation canals, was home to the first class of middlemen, trade intermediaries. A cooperative trade network set the pattern that would endure for the next 6,000 years. So it was what they have discussed. To be better understand how modern global trade has evolved, it's important to understand how countries traded with one another. Historically, over time, economists have developed theories to explain the mechanism of global trade. So let's say the first theory is mercantilism. Mercantilism, basically it's about export. Mercantilism theory says that you need to have more export, so you don't need to have more imports from other countries. So they were planning, you need to, what you call, you need to have a great wealth. Their wealth was amounted and says gold and silver. You need to have hold more gold and silver. You need to sell only, not to buy anything from other countries. They were promoting exports. The policy of mercantilism was to have more export and to reduce, even not to have import, or at least reduce it for some person and hold more goods, because previously people used to buy things by gold and silver, so their policy was just to hold the golds and take that golds from other country and sell goods. That's it. They don't buy goods again from the same country. So they were planning this theory. Recently some countries are accusing China in certain countries that they are following mercantilism theory. They don't want to import goods or products from other country, they would just want to export. So they have accused China of mercantilism policy, that these countries are following mercantilism theory, that Chinese are not willing to import anything from other country. They were planning to make everything from in their own country and export only to other countries. Because we have discussed export and import in full details, if you are importing 2 million worth of good from other country, it means you are dumping $2 million into economy of that country. So if your import are more than your export, it shows deficit. If your exports that called trade surplus. So we have discussed this issue. So mercantilism theory says that you just need to have export and you need to increase the holding of gold and silver in your country. So let's say, developed in 16th century, mercantilism was one of the earliest efforts to develop an economic theory. This theory stated that a country's wealth was determined by the amount of its gold and silver holding. In its simplest sense, mercantilists believed that a country should increase its holding of gold and silver by promoting export and discouraging import. In other words, if people in other country buy more from you export than they sell to you import, then they have to pay you the difference in gold and silver. So the objective of each country was to have a trade surplus, or a situation where the value of export are greater than the value of imports, and to avoid a trade deficit, or a situation where the value of imports is greater than the value of exports. So we have discussed that Afghanistan export and import, that they are in trade deficit, it goes minus. So this theory believe people, that mercantilists believe, that they need to have trade surplus instead of trade deficit. They were planning to export more than imports. So a closer look at world history from 1500s to the late 18s helps explain why mercantilism flourished. And that age marked the rise of new nation states, whose rulers wanted to strengthen their nation by building larger armies and national institutions. By increasing export and trade, these rulers were able to amass more gold and wealth for their country. One way that many of these new nations promoted export was to impose restriction on imports. This strategy is called protectionism, and it is still used today. So nation expanded their wealth by using their colonies around the world in the effort to control more trade and amass more riches. So we have discussed all these colonies, British colony, Roman colony, other countries that they were controlling India for 200 years. Still some videos, if you watch, that they say that British needs to pay around 35 trillion of dollar to India, because they have taken a lot of resources when they were controlling India. So what happened? They came to take over India in colonies. You see, British Empire, Roman empires, Persian empires, and these countries were controlling other countries. They were trying to send everything. You see, the Fars in other countries, they were planning this. So in order to reserve more gold, and then they were having a larger army, they were planning to invade other countries and take over. So you see the British Empire when they were planning to take. So there are many certain other colonies as well. So you find there they were planning. So the British colonial empire was one of the more successful examples. So they find it as examples, but we don't want to go to a discussion that how British colonial empire was. If you compare the land that they were controlling, and you compare the same land that in the time of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, Umar radiallahu anhu has controlled more land in the British colonial, while the British Alexander was graduated from very high army university, or for example they had already had a proper army, they had everything. But Umar radiallahu anhu, may Allah be pleased with him, he didn't had anything. So he didn't had a proper army, he didn't graduated from, he didn't got training regarding war, and he didn't got training regarding strategy, everything, but still he managed to control a lot of land, and he was able to control the whole land with peace, prosperous and security. And also he had some economical economical strategies, like you see nowadays, you need to help older people, you need to give benefits for kids, you need to have a state run medical services. These were all introduced by Umar, may Allah be pleased with him. So you see that these are their own colony. So we don't want to go and discuss these issues. You can do in more research how much land was controlled by Alexander the Great and how much land was controlled by the Umar, may Allah be pleased with him. So you see that it sought to increase its wealth by using raw material. So by using raw material from places ranging from what are now the Americas and India. So they were planning bringing raw materials from these countries. France, the Netherlands, Portugal and Spain were also successful in building larger colonial empire that generated extensive wealth for their governing nation. So nowadays it depends that some certain authors, certain economists, they believe that these armies were planning to loot other countries, their natural resources, their gold, mine, silver, whatever they had, they were taking that and they build their country on it, they build their governing nation, they build their armies, everything, and they have taken over from Africa. It's better you go and watch certain documentaries or go and do research by diamonds of Africa. You see Africans are suffering from a very low poverty rate, like they're having highest poverty rate. They're living under poverty line, they don't even find anything to eat. But still Africa was one of the world's biggest diamond resources. They had the world's largest diamond resources, but still you see what Africans are suffering because of colonial problems. So colonial were controlling them and they were taking over their land, mines, everything. So that's a very big discussion. Again, you need to go and do some research regarding, if you're interested to find out the facts and figures regarding what they were doing. So that's another mercantilism theory because of you see that this. So now although mercantilism is one of the oldest trade theories, it remains part of the modern thinking. Countries such as Japan, China, as I have discussed before, Singapore, Taiwan and even Germany still favor export and discourage import through a form of new mercantilism in which the countries promote a combination of protectionist policy and restriction on domestic industries, subsidies. So now it's not only used before, but now people, certain these countries, some economists are accusing these countries that they are following mercantilism theory. They don't want to import product, but they are willing to export. They are willing to export to other countries. So nearly even every country at one point or another has implemented some form of protectionist policy to guard key industry in its economy, while export-oriented companies usually support protectionist policy that favor their industry or firms. Other companies and consumers are hurt by protectionism. Taxpayers pay for the government subsidy to select export in the form of higher taxes. Import restriction leads to higher price for consumers. So we have discussed these things when you are imposing tariff on products, why they need to impose tariff, who suffers from. So we have discussed all these pricing issues in last classes. Who pay more for foreign made goods or services. Free trade advocates highlight how free trade benefits all members of the global community, while mercantilism protectionist policy only benefits select industries at the expense of both consumer and other companies within the outside of the industry. So that's why it's not a latest issue. it has been it's not an old issue, it has been used, this theory has been used by these countries recently as well. Why some countries are accusing, you see certain sometime that Americans are accusing China and other countries for mercantilism theory. They say that Chinese are not willing to import anything from other countries, they just want to export, they just want to be a country that export goods and services, not importing from other countries. So that is against free trade policy. So certain countries are having free trade between each other. So they say that this theory goes against free trade. So the next one is absolute advantage. After that, Adam Smith came to another theory which called absolute advantage. He says his main idea is that if you can produce a good cheaper, faster than other country, then you need to produce that product. For example, if Afghanistan can produce dry fruit, for example, if Afghanistan can produce rugs cheaper, faster than Pakistan, then Afghanistan need to concentrate only on producing rugs. Pakistan can produce, for example, oil cheaper price and faster in lower price compared to Afghanistan. Pakistan will produce oil. So what will happen? Pakistan will export oil to Afghanistan and Afghanistan will export rugs to Pakistan. So that's called absolute advantage. So you are having advantage in one product. So he believed that you need to see which product you can produce in lower price, good quality in less time. So if you can do this, then you need to concentrate on producing that product. In other products, we'll leave it to another country. So let's say in 1776, Adam Smith questioned the leading mercantile theory of the time in the Wealth of Nation. Adam Smith, an inquiry into the nature and causes of the Wealth of Nation, London. So whatever the source, recent version have been edited by scholars and economists. Smith offered a new trade theory called absolute advantage, which focus on ability of a country to produce a good more efficiently than another nation. Smith reasoned that trade between countries shouldn't be regulated or restricted by government policies or intervention. So he believed that your government should not intervene between the two countries. He stated that trade should flow naturally according to market forces. So if you need, it needs to flow between supply and demand. So if there is a demand, you supply in these forces, not in a hypothetical two-country world, if a country A could produce a good cheaper or faster or both than country B, then country A had the advantage and could focus on specializing on producing that good. Similarly, if country B was better at producing another good, it could focus on specialization as well. By specialization, countries would generate efficiencies because their labor force would become more skilled by doing the same tasks. So it's simple, I don't think we need to explain. Production would also become more efficient because there would be an incentive to create faster and better production method to increase the specialization. So he believes that if you are specializing in a single product, it's better. Your employees will get the worker labor will get more skill. They will produce good quality product at less price in less time, so it will be effective and efficient for others, so people can use that. Smith theory reasoned that with increased efficiencies, people in both countries would benefit and trade should be encouraged. His theory stated that a nation's wealth shouldn't be judged by how much gold and silver it had, but rather than by a living standard of its people. So you see that the difference between mercantilism and absolute advantage, they were planning to judge the nation wealth by gold and silver, but he believed that standard of its people, how people are living, in which standard. So that's called absolute advantage. So in that absolute advantage, you specialize in certain area and you produce that product. Another country specialize in another area, they produce that product, then you exchange both product with each other, both countries. So that's called absolute advantage. Next is comparative advantage. Comparative advantage is if a country produce both product better than another one, like they can do both better than the third country. So what will happen then? What they need to do? So this theory, he stated that which one you are doing the most effective, which product you can produce in most effective. If you can do A or B, you cannot be both of them will not be the same. So it means you are very good in producing A product than B, so then you need to produce that, and still you need to get benefit from international trade. There is an example which I have included, so once we discuss this, then it will be very clear for you. So let's see. The challenge to the absolute advantage theory was that some countries may be better at producing both goods. So in absolute advantage, you are good in one goods, one, not both, therefore have an advantage in many areas. In contrast, another country may not have any useful absolute advantages. To answer this challenge, David Ricardo, an English economist, introduced the theory of comparative advantage in 1817. Ricardo reasons that if country A had the absolute advantage in producing of both products, specialization in trade could still occur between two countries. If they can produce both products, still there can be international trade between. So how come? Let's see. Comparative advantage occurs when a country cannot produce a product more efficiently than another country. However, it can produce that product better and more efficiently than it does other goods. The difference between these two theories is subtle. Comparative advantage focus on relative productivity difference, where absolute advantage look at absolute productivity. So let's see. Let's look at a simplified hypothetical example to illustrate this subtle difference between these principles. So let's see, this is a example. It will clear comparative advantage theory for you, so then you can understand what's the difference between comparative advantage and absolute advantage. Miranda is a Wall Street liar who charged $500 per hour for her legal service. It turned out that Miranda can also type faster than administrative assistant in her office, so who are paid $40 per hour. So you see, Miranda, he get $500 per hour for her legal services. She's a liar. But Miranda assistant get $40 per hour just to what she's doing, typing. Yes, office who are paid $40 per hour. So even though Miranda clearly has the absolute advantage in both skills, so he can do the liar and he can do the assistant job as well. He got Miranda got absolute advantage in both, in writing and legal service as well. So even though Miranda clearly has absolute advantage in both skills, should she do both jobs? Should she do her job in liar legal services and also this? Then the answer is no. Why? Because for every hour Miranda decide to type, she is losing $460 in income. She can be good from an administrative assistant, but still she needs someone else to do this job, because she can do in $400, but Miranda can charge $500 for legal services. Comparative advantage theory suggests that Miranda should only focus on her legal services because she is charging $500. If she do the same job, assistant job, she is losing $460 for an hour. So we know that she can do both job better than her assistant, but still it's better she focus on her legal services and leave the administrative assistant for another one. So for every hour Miranda decide to type instead of do legal work, she would be giving up $460 in income. Her productivity income will be highest if she specializes in her higher paid legal services and hire the most qualified administrative assistant who can type fast, although a little slower than Miranda, she can focus on this and she can hire someone else for $40 an hour, and she can do the assistant job. So here you see that she's doing both. She's very good in both jobs. Yes, by having both Miranda and her assistant concentrate on their respective tasks, their overall productivity as a team is higher. This is a comparative advantage. A person or a country will specialize in doing what they do relatively better. In reality, the world economy is more complex and consists of more than 2 countries and products. Barrier to trade may exist and goods must be transported, stored and distributed. However, this simplistic example demonstrates the basic of comparative advantage theory. So you see this called comparative advantage. So let me review what we have discussed today. So we have discussed international trade theories. There are many theories you can find, but we don't want to go through. If we had time and we can, so we might discuss some other theory, but as or not, these will be enough. There is one mercantilism theory which suggests that there needs to be only export, no imports, holding and the country wealth needs to be determined on having more gold and silver, their economy. Then there another theory is absolute advantage, which was Adam Smith theory. He says it should be the product. It should be on living standard. The wealth of a country should be judged by living standard, and should country needs to be specialized in certain product. If they can produce a product more efficiently, effectively, in less time, in cheaper price, then they need to specialize on that product. Then the last one is comparative advantage, which if you're having both advantage, you need to focus on a product that you can have a you are specialized in that product. So in next class we will discuss another topic, inshallah. So I wish you all the best. Please follow these lectures and read. So even if we get time to revise all these things, it will be very fast track, because we will cover 16-week lecture maybe in 2 classes or in 4 classes. So it will be very difficult. If you don't follow this, it will be very difficult for you to understand this in the class or in the exam as well.